Welcome to the It Factor. We're Jemmy and I, exploring a new blog post by Mr. Len Kaplan, CEO of CDML, a managed service provider in Queens, NY, offering network management, voice over IP, unified communications as a service, cybersecurity, compliance, infrastructure as a service, cloud solutions, and Microsoft 365 and Azure solutions. If you're a small business owner or manage IT for a growing organization, this episode is for you.
It really is, because today's topic is, it's one of those things that I think secretly keeps a lot of leaders awake at night.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're doing a deep dive into a really provocative piece by Len Kaplan, and he starts with this premise it's probably going to unsettle a few people listening today.
Yeah, in a necessary way, though.
Right, because usually when we think about cybersecurity or IT, your mind goes to a very specific place. You picture a cold server room with blinking lights or firewalls.
You think of those impossible passwords you have to update every 30 days.
Exactly. A capital letter, a number, a special character. It all feels so
Technical. It feels like a strictly technical problem. Like, it's just binary code or software patches that the computer guys are supposed to handle down in the basement.
Yeah, but Len Kaplan argues that looking at it that way is completely wrong.
Yeah.
He says that operational downtime, when the systems actually stop working, isn't a technical problem at all. It's a financial event.
And that distinction is huge. It really is. Because if you frame it as a technical issue, as a CEO, you can just delegate that, right? You tell your IT manager to go fix the router or whatever.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. But the second you frame it as a financial event, as a direct threat to cash flow, suddenly that is a board-level problem. Because when the systems stop, the money stops.
Which brings us to this really uncomfortable question he poses right at the beginning of the article. And I actually want everyone listening to just kind of sit with this for a second. Let it sink in.
It's a heavy one.
If your business was offline for one full business day, completely offline, what would it actually cost you?
And we should clarify, we are not talking about the repair bill from your IT vendor. We aren't talking about a hacker's ransom demand either. We mean the pure operational cost of silence. The cost of your entire team just sitting there unable to work while the clock ticks.
It's terrifying because so many organizations have never actually done that math. They know it would be bad, but they don't have a real number.
And Len points out that this lack of calculation is exactly where the risk quietly snowballs.
Right. It's an invisible risk until it suddenly becomes very visible. He paints this picture in the source material that he calls the Tuesday morning nightmare. And reading it, it felt so visceral.
Walk us through it. It's a great scenario.
Okay, so picture this. It's Tuesday morning. You got your coffee. You're ready to tackle the week. You sit down at 9 a.m. You wiggle a mouse to wake up the screen, and you can't log in.
Which, at first, you probably just think you typed your password wrong. Or the Wi-Fi is being glitchy.
Sure. But then you hear this murmur out in the hallway. You look up, and people are standing up at their desks. It's not just your computer. Email is down. The core apps won't load. Your CRM, the accounting software, whatever you actually use to do your job is just gone.
And here's the kicker he mentions. You instinctively pick up your desk phone to call IT, but there is no dial tone.
Because everyone uses voice over IP now.
Exactly. The phones run on the exact same network that just went down.
So you are completely isolated. It's 9:01 a.m. You can't open the presentation for your 10 o'clock meeting. You can't even email your client to say you're running late. You're paralyzed.
And that is just hour one. Fast forward to noon, leadership is demanding answers, but the IT team is still scrambling. They don't have an ETA.
By 3 p.m., the outside world notices. Clients are calling your personal cell because the main lines are dead. They're getting frustrated. They're asking if their personal data got stolen.
And by the end of the day, you realize your business has generated exactly $0 in revenue.
Zero revenue, but you still had to pay everyone's salary for the day.
That's the double burn. Len breaks this down beautifully. Let's actually do the calculation for the listeners right now.
Let's do it.
Think about your average daily revenue. Just hold a rough number in your head. Now, what percentage of that money depends on your systems being up? If you run a landscaping company, maybe you can still mow lawns. But if you're a medical practice or an accounting firm,
it has to be almost 100%. You can't review contracts or bill hours without the network.
Right. So the article uses a great baseline. Say your daily revenue is $40,000. And let's be conservative and say only 70% relies on system access.
Okay, doing the mental math, 40,000 times 70%. That's $28,000.
That is a $28,000 direct hit, evaporated in one day. But that's just the lost income.
Then you have the idle payroll.
Exactly. You have 50 employees sitting around unable to work, but you legally have to pay them. You are literally burning cash.
And it compounds, right?
Right.
Because when the systems finally come back online, you aren't just magically caught up.
No, you're in a massive hole. You have to pay overtime to clear the backlog. You might have to refund angry clients. It's increased expenses piled on top of lost income.
It's like that old saying, it's not the fall that hurts, it's the sudden stop. The sudden stop of cash flow is what breaks a business.
That is a perfect analogy. And this brings us to a huge point about ransomware. When a breach makes the news, what is the one number the media always focuses on?
The ransom amount. Like,
Yeah.
hackers demand $5 million.
Always. But Len points out the extortion isn't actually the most expensive part, it's the interruption. He cites this Coveware report that has a statistic that it blew my mind.
I know exactly which one you mean.
Oh.
The average downtime.
Yeah. What was it again?
21 days.
21 days.
That is 3 entire weeks.
3 weeks of that Tuesday morning nightmare we just talked about. Take that $28,000 daily loss and multiply it by 21.
That is, wow. That's over $500,000 just in lost revenue before you even think about paying a hacker.
And that is why business interruption is almost always the largest source of financial loss. It far exceeds the ransom because you're dealing with missed deadlines and supply chain backlogs that take months to fix.
And the client churn. If I can't reach my vendor for 3 weeks, I am finding a new vendor.
Of course you are. Trust is so fragile. And frankly, if you are finding this breakdown of the real costs helpful, you should definitely head over to CDML.com and subscribe to their blog.
Yes, highly recommend that. They publish new insights like this every Tuesday and Thursday. It's super valuable to see this data actually laid out on the screen.
Definitely. So we've covered the visible stuff, the lost sales, the payroll, but Kaplan introduces this idea of the iceberg effect, the invisible costs that are lurking underwater.
The things leaders forget until the invoices show up 6 months later. He cites IBM research from the Ponemon Institute showing average U.S. breach costs hit around $10.22 million.
Right. Now, obviously, a small business won't hit $10 million, but the categories of those costs apply to everyone.
So what exactly is under the waterline?
Legal fees. For one, if you handle any sort of sensitive data, you might face regulatory fines. You need legal counsel to navigate all of that.
Because clients might sue you for breach of contract if you missed a massive deadline.
Exactly. Then there's the forensic investigation. You can't just reboot the server and cross your fingers. You have to hire specialized experts to come in, find out how the hackers got in, what they took, and prove they're actually gone.
And the mandatory notifications. I didn't even consider that. If data is exposed, you have to mail letters to everyone affected.
Which means paying for postage, PR crisis management, and usually providing a year of credit monitoring for all those people to avoid a class action lawsuit.
It really just never ends.
It doesn't. And your insurance premiums will skyrocket the next year, assuming they don't drop your coverage entirely.
There was one specific invisible risk in the source that I found fascinating because nobody thinks about it. The phones.
Oh, the phone factor. Massive blind spot.
Len asks, if the phones fail, are calls rerouted? And I realized most people have no idea.
We treat phones like electricity. We just assume they'll work. But modern voice-over IP systems rely on your network. Network goes down, phones go down.
So the client just hears ringing into the void.
Basically, imagine a client has an emergency. They call you, and the line just rings endlessly or goes to a dead signal. They don't know you got hacked. They just assume you're ignoring them or that you went out of business.
Which is devastating for your reputation.
Unless you have a documented failover process. Does the system automatically route to an answering service? Do your people know how to manually forward numbers from their cell phones?
Missed calls are literally missed revenue.
Exactly. Now, to really ground all these concepts, I want us to run through this fantastic case study from the article. It's about a hypothetical $2 million organization.
Let's do it. I think putting hard numbers to this really solidifies the argument.
Okay, so a company generating $2 million in annual revenue. That is a very standard, successful small business. Based on 260 working days a year, they're bringing in roughly $7,700 a day.
Okay, $7,700 a day. Got it.
Now, let's introduce a ransomware attack. A common ransom demand is around 5% of annual revenue.
So 5% of $2 million, that's $100,000 right out of the gate.
Right. And criminals do their homework. They look at your financials before they set the price. They know it hurts, but is still payable.
That is so cynical.
It's a business for them. So we start with $100,000. Now we add the downtime. Let's say you're down for 10 days.
Okay, 10 days times the 7,700 in daily revenue. That's $77,000.
Yep. And if you hit that 20-day average from earlier, you're looking at over 150,000. But let's stick to the 10 days.
So 100,000 ransom plus 77,000 in lost revenue. We're at 177,000.
But we have to add the incident costs. The forensics, the lawyers, the recovery. The article puts a conservative estimate for that between 60 and 100 grand.
Let's call it 80,000 to be safe.
Okay. 100,000 ransom. 77,000 downtime. 80,000 recovery. The total bill is roughly $257,000.
$257,000 for a company that only grosses $2 million.
And here is the real gut punch. You have to look at profit margins. Revenue is not profit.
Right, you still have to pay rent, materials, salaries.
Let's assume this company runs a very healthy 15% net profit margin. 15% of $2 million is $300,000. That is their entire profit for the year.
Oh, wow.
This single event cost them $257,000.
It basically wipes out the whole year.
It means the CEO, the sales team, the operations staff, they essentially worked from January to December for free. The entire business existed that year just to pay for one breach.
That is incredibly sobering. It really proves Len's point that this isn't an IT headache. It is a fundamental threat to the business. You can't give raises, you can't expand, you might struggle to make payroll.
And we didn't even factor in the reputational damage in that, Matt.
Right. Okay, so before we completely panic everyone listening, how do we actually fix this? The article shifts toward preparedness. How does CDML help businesses avoid this exact scenario?
Well, the guiding principle Len uses is to shift the mindset. He says cybersecurity conversations usually begin with tools and end with invoices, but they should begin with math.
Start with the math.
Exactly. It's not about achieving some mythical state of perfect security. It's about resilience. And CDML does this practically, starting with risk discovery.
Which is basically what we just did, right?
Yes, but highly tailored to your specific operations. They quantify your downtime impact before a crisis happens. They find those hidden dependencies, like your phones or specific cloud apps you rely on.
So you aren't guessing what your exposure is.
Right. From there, it's incident response. Defining who actually makes the call when things go sideways. If your network locks up at 9 in the morning, who has the authority to pull the plug? Who notifies legal?
You definitely do not want to be forming a committee while your screens are flashing red.
No. You need a playbook. Then they implement BCDR business continuity and disaster recovery. This means having backups that actually align with your risk tolerance. How much data can you actually afford to lose?
And testing those backups.
Crucial. If you haven't tested your restore process, you don't have a backup. You just have a wish.
And then they layer in the actual security controls, I assume.
The technical defense. Multi-factor authentication, endpoint protection, proper patching, but done in a way that your staff can actually work with so they don't try to bypass it.
And voice continuity, so those client calls actually route to a cell phone instead of a dead end.
Exactly. It's about ensuring you aren't trying to invent a fire escape while the building is actively burning.
That makes total sense.
Yes.
And hey, if you're finding this breakdown helpful, please do click that thumbs up button. It really helps us push this information out to more business owners who need to hear it.
For sure.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what is the biggest takeaway for you from Len Kaplan's piece?
For me, it's the realization that when you finally understand the true cost of one day offline, resilience stops being just an IT preference. It becomes core risk management.
It moves from the server room straight to the boardroom.
It has to. You wouldn't run a warehouse without fire insurance. You shouldn't run a modern business without a strategy for digital downtime.
And for anyone thinking they really need to figure out their own numbers, you don't have to do it alone. You can visit cdml.com/contact for help estimating your actual exposure.
And remember, they post new blog updates every Tuesday and Thursday, so keep an eye out for those.
Definitely. You know, to leave everyone with one final thought to mull over, we talked about the cost to your own business today. But think about your downstream liability. If your systems are down for 3 weeks and that delay causes your biggest client to lose a major contract, what happens when their lawyers decide your lack of preparedness constitutes negligence?
Oh, that is a whole different level of financial exposure.
Right. Could they come after the business owner's personal assets? It really changes how you view a simple software backup.
It certainly does.
Well, we've given you all plenty to think about today. We're Jimmy and I. Thanks for listening. Till next time.